Hey, Gayatri.
Hi, Ananga. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey,
Happy New Year.
great. Happy New Year to you too. I was reading the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and there's such a beautiful description about Prahlad Maharaj, who learned Vedic sciences and the science of devotional service when he was in the womb of his mother. And the impact, we've heard several times what impact um, can be created or what impact it has in early childhood education, childhood trauma, and all of those things, how much impact it can have in an adult life. And I was thinking that's actually described so beautifully in Srimad Bhagavatam that a soul in the mother's womb actually was introduced to the science of devotional service and how he starts practicing at a very young age. We actually have a wonderful guest today. Her name is Krishnangi Radhe. And hi, Krishnangi. How are you?
Hi there, Gayatri. Hi, Ananga. Thank you for having me. I'm good. And Happy New Year to you as well.
Happy New Year.
New Year. And I'll see you here.
Thank you. Finally, we
So
get to do this.
I know across countries. So Krishnangi Radhe
And
is
where are
joining
you
us
at? Where are you based out of?
from South
I'm
Africa.
in South Africa.
That's
Yeah.
the thing.
So Krishnangi Radhe is joining us from South Africa. She is a DJ. She does a lot of services for women in South Africa, supporting them, encouraging them, empowering them. And she is a coach, and she's going to tell us specifically about her modality. But her coaching is catered towards couples, women, children, and specifically, to the topic that we were discussing, deep impressions that we have from early childhood and how certain actions or certain reactions we have in our adult life can be specifically connected to a trauma that we hold. There's a really beautiful saying that you cannot heal what you cannot feel. So to heal something, you really need to be able to feel and then connect the dots. And that's her specialty. So Krishnangi, really, we're so happy and honored to have you here. And tell us a little bit about, your Sankalpa coaching. First of all, I know Ananga really wants to know what it really means. Sankalpa.
Yeah, we were looking at your website and Sankalpa has a like catchy phrase. What does it mean? And what's the Sanskrit word?
We're going to tag the website at the bottom of the video, and please check that out. But yeah, tell us a little bit about Sankalpa.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited to share because it is a journey that I've been on. My whole life has been centered around devotional service. And somehow it is just something inherent where we help each other, right? And we just offer that support. It comes so naturally because that's how we were raised. And I began my journey with motivational speaking based on scripture because understanding that deep rooted faith that God is the center of our lives and whatever happens, happens by his will. And in that way, somehow it led me to deliver motivational talks, being a former teacher as well in the classroom, connecting with young children, connecting with parents alike, and seeing how sometimes they just go through very difficult situations. And then I was invited to write for a newspaper regarding wellness, well being. And I said, okay, I'm doing all of this. And now I'd really like to study something that would help me really just up level what I am doing. And that's when I connected to NLP or neuro-linguistic programming, the modality that I focus on. And neuro being the brain and how we actually think, linguistic being our language that we speak internally and externally, right? Internally, there's so many things running through our brain, even as we're sitting here. Correct. And it's hard to think. So it's an internal dialogue that we have, how it connects to our brain, the words that we actually speak out to the universe. That has power as well, right? And then the programming is basically like a computer. So you punch in something on your app and something comes out. So the words that we're punching in to our hard drive, our brain, is what program's going to run through our system. So I really felt that was interesting. And being a language teacher myself, specializing in English, so I thought, okay, and I was lucky enough to be able to get a certification by an international coach and register with the International Coaching Federation with my coaching practice that, as you said, is called Sankalpa Coaching. And I know that term or that word attracts so many people. And I didn't really name it that for the attention in that way, but it was also, as you say, catchy. So it is a Sanskrit term, and it is called a vow or an intention. And somehow or the other, I just felt it just linked so beautifully with exactly what I do. It's a vow to help others. And I just find that as I help others, I'm helping myself in the process. I never knew that the more that I give, the more that I gain. It's really, I wouldn't say it is such a beautiful journey, because so many people and children, especially parents, that you may just speak to them and sometimes somebody just wants to be heard. That's all. And they figured it out for themselves as they're speaking it out aloud. Exactly, that's our language, and we're putting it out there. So the way we receive it, we may change our perspective. So that is Sankalpa. That is
Thank you.
Sankalpa.
Thank you so much for explaining how you coined it as Sankalpa.
It's a
Yeah.
beautiful name. And I really love the way you said. And in fact, I thought that, it doesn't just speak about your vow or your intention, but it's also someone that's coming to you, their intention to improve their life or how they feel, or, that intention that I want to make a change for myself. That's when someone comes to a coach. I
And
want to better this for myself.
that's exactly it, because you need to want it in order to achieve it, right? So we say, like, you cannot take the horse to the water and make it drink. It has to drink on its own. You can take it there, but it has to. So on its own. So therefore, again, it is exactly as you say, it's that two-way street where it's my vow and it's the person who enters this is also being very intentional about what they would like for themselves.
Actually, this word, when I came across your website for the first time, it was catchy to me because I was just remembering Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna. He was the ultimate coaching client, isn't he? But he wasn't he? And Krishna was just initially on the initial chapters. Krishna was saying you need to have a focused attention, vivasatmika buddhi. And that's why I was thinking that Krishna didn't start giving him a pep talk or, some nice positive uplifting talk. So I was curious, like you just explained why you wind it as Sankalpa. But when these people of the modern day world come, we are many branched, right? Like you were saying, we are thinking internally so much. There's so much talking going on internally more than externally. How do you help? How does NLP help these many branch people thinking in their minds, always thinking, it just doesn't shut off very easily? How do you help them get to a focused intention in their lives?
Great question. And I think the first thing is creating awareness because we don't have that awareness. You know, as you say, there's so many thoughts that go through. And often the example that I use is our to do list. It's a never ending to do list, right? And forgive me for saying, but especially as women,
Yeah.
our list just, our list just never ends.
Different cultures, different categories. Yeah.
When after all the boxes are checked, and then it's okay, now I've got to take care of myself, but I'm too tired to do that. So it's just exactly that, creating the awareness, setting the intention to start my day with a positive mindset for me. And then we say, if you are fulfilled, you can help others. You can do your duties at home. You can offer care as women, especially. So it's just shutting out the noise that's constantly going on around us and creating that awareness that, okay, let me pause for a moment. Let me actually physically pause for a moment. Let me breathe. Let me ground myself if I'm feeling anxious, if I'm feeling overwhelmed. And then I can move on with better focus and better intention. And so, as you say, Krishna just went right into it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, you know what, you get your focus here. Let's talk whilst your mind is not everywhere else. And that's how the discussion had started. So, therefore, one of the things that we do is setting the intentions of where do we want, we here today, where do we want to go? So, coaching is very much about going forward in life, in our lives, taking those action steps that needed to move forward.
Krishnanki, can you tell me an example of, you know, maybe not, directly because of client coach privilege, but just some example of what kind of situations could someone seek coaching and how that would help, someone maneuver these emotions and actually better, have a clarity about why this is happening and how I can control this or how I can change my behavioral pattern, which is really so hard to break.
Very difficult, yeah. Thank you. So, we may say simple things like self confidence, like self worth. Those are important stuff that sometimes we take for granted. And if you are at different stages in your life, say for instance, if you've just out of university and now you're looking for a job and you got to get into the workplace, you got to go for that interview, right? You've got to have a sense of self confidence. You got to have a beautiful bio, a beautiful resume. But in that interview, how you come across is also very important. So we look at those aspects of our self confidence. And what happens is that, we all born with innocence, we all born with purity, with all those wonderful qualities. But as we grow, life happens, experiences happen that kind of changes the way we deal with the world. And as you say that, our behavioral patterns, how does coaching affect our patterns? Like with self-confidence, you may never, for me, for instance, an example, I could use my personal life example, that actually getting online and doing stuff online uh, was natural in a way, but also I had to do work about how am I going to project myself online in my coaching business. So, and why was I, apprehensive about doing some videos or reels for Instagram? What was that that's sitting in the back of my subconscious mind that made me apprehensive? Was it that people are going to judge me? You know, how would I be seen? I'm a mom. I've got 2 teenage daughters. Would they cringe if they see stuff that I done, that I posted? So all these things at different levels, right? And sometimes my girl says to me, "Oh gosh, mom, please just don't post that."
Well, having 2 teenage boys, they do the same.
These are all behavioral
That will block me if you like.
and they say, "Oh no, gosh, if my friends find your account."
And it's
What? Well, it's not awful behavioral patterns. I don't know who I am, or am I judging myself based on what my children think of me? Just a simple example. So those are the things where then we check our identity. So if I'm online as a businesswoman, as a coach helping people, that's my identity in that particular space.
Mm.
And when I'm at home, I'm a mom. And if I'm able to set that boundary and clear distinction, and I present it as such for my children, they will appreciate the difference as well. So sometimes it's just that clarity that's needed in order for us to actually change our behavioral patterns. So now when I do something, I know this is the identity that I'm stepping into in the online space. And this is the identity that I am when I'm with my family. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that when we go to work, we carry our behavior in a certain way. When we are with family and friends, we are different.
I think you so much remind me of how even Krishna did the identity correction for Arjuna. He said, right now, he like you were saying, awareness. So the first step he said is, what's your identity? Your identity is a soul. But at this time on the battlefield, you are a Kshatriya. You're meant to fight for justice. So I really liked your point that first step is awareness of who you are in the context of where you are or what your responsibility is at that point of time. And I absolutely love those words like the self care and the self worth that you mentioned because we keep hearing these buzzwords so much these days.
Yeah.
And I follow Mahatma Prabhu. He also keeps talking about self care more than, as an information every day before our spiritual practices like chanting and reading. So, can you dive a little deeper on self care? Like, what do you do for self care and how it ties to NLP, the brain and linguistic part that you're mentioning?
One of the things Gayatri as well just asked about my personal experiences with clients. So at the end of and it ties in it with exactly your question. So at the end of last year, I actually had my very first in-person event. And it took a lot of work from me as well as a coach. I had some blocks about, it's an in-person event, it's a paid-for event. I often did 3 things. Everything was like that I do is giving back and giving back and giving back. And now I had to go out there and put a price to what I offered. So that was one thing that I had to change my own mindset about to say, I'm giving value. It's an exchange of energy, right? So I had to change that. It really took for me to actually get out there and say, this is the cost of this. Took a lot from me. And eventually I had a sold out event. And what was it? It was an afternoon at a spa. It was a lady event. It was a Saturday afternoon. We did a coaching session on building confidence. We had lovely little tea time snacks and some journaling, some laughter together, some games, coaching games. And then each one went in to have a foot massage. And they loved it. And one of the things there that came across was we need to set time out for ourselves. And their family knew that on that Saturday between 3 and 6 o'clock, they were gone somewhere. And it was time for them. And I cannot express how appreciative they were to say, thank you for giving us something to, attend to make ourselves to say we've booked, we've paid, and we have to go. It's not that I'm going to sit at home and say I'm going to read a book and eventually be pulled in 5 different directions, that I don't really do it eventually. So self-care really gives us the platform to feel good about ourselves. And as women, we need to acknowledge there's nothing wrong about feeling good about ourselves.
That's true.
And oftentimes it's when we say it out aloud, it's so impactful to say, pause, stop. It's okay to give myself time. Even if it's 10, 15 minutes, it's okay for me to invest in myself. Another form of self care is through, when we are dealing with trauma, self care helps so much. Little acts of kindness to ourselves helps heal. And I can tell you that a lot of my clients, even if it means going out, sitting by yourself at a coffee shop, buying something, just being by yourself, taking that time to sit, reflect, create awareness, pause, that helps the journey of healing. When there's abuse, remember that you are mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically torn down, and you've lost yourself in that process. Your identity shifts, your self confidence is gone down. Okay. You question yourself. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do I deserve this? So when you start pouring back into yourself by giving yourself that little kindness, whatever it may look like previously, whatever you enjoyed, even if it's going for a walk, that's self-care and it helps you heal. So the form of self-care is very beautiful because it starts from within you in small, simple acts, but it has so much of impact in our lives at different levels. And I've seen this, guys, read that, especially with my clients, when it comes to abuse, ladies often neglect themselves after going through that sort of trauma. That's the reality. Even to put on some makeup, put on a lipstick, sometimes is difficult. And I've seen that. And some of them actually win by saying, you know what, today I went to the mall. Or today I was able to actually dress up, put on something that I loved wearing previously, but I couldn't put it on anymore. So these are the little acts which we may think is little, but for others, it's not.
Yeah.
So self-care, I cannot emphasize enough.
I actually resonate with this so much because when I'm extremely tired and worked out and I have a lot on my plate, I just for 5 minutes, 5, 10 minutes, I'll just shut everything off. And I'll go and dress up. I'll go to my closet, I'll pick a really nice dress that I like, and I'll go and dress up. I'll take my
Yeah.
time, maybe do something. But when I just do that, it reminds me, and because Ananga was bringing up the example of Arjuna, it's like, the time one takes to pull the arrow back, you might
Mm.
feel that it's, we're really not being productive. But no, that's actually refining our focus and telling ourselves that unless I take care of myself, and it may seem like I'm pulling back from everything else, but actually we're just realigning our focus and making a really stronger and sharper,
Aim.
target.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it really, really helps. Exactly like you said. And it doesn't have to be super fancy. Like for this,
Mhm.
with 21st of January, and since 1st of January I've been trying to set up a routine of yoga every day, and it's now working out. And then Preman, my older son, he's like, Mama, you're not going to be able to do it at home. Don't even take these online classes. Just go,
Yeah.
just go join a yoga club. You and I say it's gonna cost thrice as much. And he says that's the reason you would show up.
Mm.
So that's the reason you're not gonna miss. You're missing these online classes because it's costing you a fraction. And you don't really care. Okay, it's no big deal, it's fine.
I think that's why Krishna Radha is sold out event. Like you had a cost. That's why it helps. Sometimes we have to be accountable for when we are paying for something. So
Yeah, because then we value it.
Yeah. Yeah. And exactly, just picking up what you're saying. So now that I am not teaching anymore, because I used to be in the classroom full time, and I also found that my routine is so scattered. My routine, because at going to work, you've got to leave the house at certain time, you've got to be at work. After work, X, Y, and Z happens. So now, because I have that flexibility, and exactly before school, I used to get up and make sure that my morning routine is done, my meditation, get halfway through at least, do some stretches, do some exercise. Now I don't. So I've now go to a Pilates class as and my phone is left aside. It actually feels so good that I carry my mat out, and it's like, you're setting that intention for yourself for the next hour. And it's simple things that my mat is in my car boot. So I know it's there, it's ready for me. I carry it out and I head to it. My phone is left aside, everything's left aside for that 45 minutes. And I know I've given myself that time.
It's beautiful. Yeah, that is really amazing. I'm just wondering, I have another question. What is the process? Is it always through journaling, through writing thoughts, taking time for self-care? Or how do you tie these tangents? Like, if to give you an example, if I have moments of insecurity, what does that reflect? What kind of an impression does that reflect from my childhood? Or, how do you make these tangents? How do you kind of find the root cause of a behavioral pattern?
yeah, if you can give us a quick cheat sheet, like if somebody is too angry or
Just
and that
and perhaps just to understand that, sometimes our experiences, we store them in so many places within our body, within our, I was reading that sometimes people that have constant headaches or shoulder pain, they're carrying some sort of stress, so they're trying to, they feel that nothing can move without them. And I find that really, because I constantly have pain here and I feel like, oh, if I don't feed, nobody's going to eat.
Yes.
But now that I'm kind of making the effort to let everybody do their things, my shoulder pain has reduced.
There you go. Certainly. Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
So I was, yeah, go ahead. I
So
really want to.
it's very interesting because there's also, and I didn't speak about this earlier because it's a little bit more complex. It's called timeline therapy. So where you can actually go back into your timeline, but that's only when you're ready for it. Because sometimes things are there. And a very simple example, okay, yeah, I was looking. So, for instance, if you've got some pearls, right? And something stuck, and you cannot just move forward. And when you go into your timeline therapy, and there's a specific way that we enhance thoughts from the past. So if you release this one that's holding you back, everything else naturally flows. And that's exactly what that form or that part as well is. But it's a risk attached to it because sometimes we rather work on what we know than going back too far, because then that's really deep. And until you're ready for that, if you cannot really, 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 really move past and you're really depressed and, in a very heavy way, then we look at that. But for us, again, it's awareness. I was actually in the Philippines, as you know, recently, and we were doing a coaching session in a yoga studio. So the ladies had just finished a breathwork session and yoga session. And I spoke about this particular modality. And one of the ladies there asked me to say that she finds and she sees this pattern that she breaks down a lot in public. She says in public spaces, something triggers, there's a trigger, and she breaks down. And she says, now, how does she actually stop that? Because she feels embarrassed about this. And one of the first things, as we said earlier, is your awareness to it. So maybe we don't understand what really happened for her to feel that way, what really happened. But she's aware because the pattern is there. So when this pattern comes up and we are aware of this, then we can deal with it. And again, as I said, coaching is not going too deep into the past. It's actually saying, okay, this is my problem. So for her, something like that. And I said, well, before you leave home, you set your intention to say, you know what? I am now aware of my surroundings. And today I'm going to go out and smile and be present where I am. So immediately, just by putting on that smile and being present, you are shutting out the noise of any thoughts that may subconsciously crop up. And when you set those intentions, you are creating new patterns. So every time, maybe the first time it works and the second time it doesn't, will be formed. So that was something simple that I had just shared with her. There's another way that when we identify these patterns, because often patterns happen, right? It's like you hear a song on the radio, or you smell a particular scent, or you eat a particular, it's your senses that are attached to that emotion. And it brings back, it triggers. Sometimes it could be a happy trigger. Well, there's nothing wrong with happy, right? But when you find these triggers that are bringing you down and that's negative, oftentimes you can identify, if you sit and you really think back and say, but what is really bringing this on? You will be able to identify it. But if you cannot, again, it's about moving forward. It's about saying, this emotion does not serve me. So how can I now identify when this happens, what do I do? So I'm going to give you another remedy in that way, or another quick, as you say, a quick toolkit. So it's called anchoring. I'm not sure if you've heard about the term anchoring.
Uh-huh.
So when you are anchored in a particular state is your emotional state, your state of being happy, your state of being sad, your state of being joyful, whatever it is. So if you anchor an emotion in self-confidence, in happiness, you can actually fire, we call it firing the anchor. So you can, normally you can store it here or on your chest. Think of a time in your life when you were self-confident, and you can really go back and think about it deeply, feel the emotion, get into that state, get into that energy that you felt at that particular time, and store it in a particular place, like here, like your chest, and really get into that emotion. And eventually, when you need to fire that anchor, if you press that particular place, it triggers, it connects to the neuron, which reinstates that particular state.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted to understand. You said NLP, and I totally echo with Gayatri's question about insecurity. Us as women, we get insecure, small things, my self image, what would people think of me, what would my kids, like you were explaining. And when this insecurity or any other emotion that plays us down comes in us, then you said the first step is awareness, which activates our brain. And then is it after that the linguistic part comes where we self-talk or raise our consciousness up? Is that how it works? I just wanted to understand your modality, how it goes from the neuro to linguist and then programming.
Thank you so much, Ananga, for that. So, one of the things that actually we find now in our space in this generation, I think, as you say, women are so insecure. We have many insecurities, as you said. And that dates back to the generations of our great grandmothers, right? And those generations of how they were. And we've had to fight this battle of actually holding space and taking up space and being working women and being modern women in a sense. So we've had to like really recreate the norm and be accepted in a different view as women. So that was there, that's there. Another form of our self doubt or our limitations that we've put on ourselves is the social media aspect, where there's a lot of pressure, especially on young girls, to conform with what looks good, right? And being the ideal size, or even if you have a zit now, it's please, can I get a pimple patch? I'm like, when we were little, there was still pimple patches that we put on to something that's so invisible. So, so all these things are there. Now, how do we work from the awareness, as you're asking, to the linguistic side? Again, it's identifying, as you say, we are our own cheerleaders, first and foremost. And many women depend on that validation from somebody else. Just
True.
to say, you're looking good. Then you say, oh, okay, I'm actually really looking good. But if you say it to yourself, as Gayatri says, put on that dress for you, do it for you as a woman, do it for you. So again, it comes back to that language patterning. If you say, I'm worthless, of course you're going to feel worthless. You're going to show up to the world as worthless.
Yeah.
Right? So those patterns of language, again, those patterns of language is how it starts with how we speak to ourselves first. So if we are able to give ourselves that validation, self-validation, then
Not internal. Yeah.
nobody else's validation will matter. And if then somebody says to you, well, you're looking good, and say, oh, thank you so much, And with
I
that
already
confidence,
knew.
you take it to another level. Well, you don't have to say it aloud. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. It's your because you've programmed it internally already. You see,
Yeah.
that state that we've just been speaking about. So our brain is already wired in the state of saying, wow, okay, this color looks good on me. And if it doesn't look good, change into something else that makes you feel good. You know? And in that way, it's that language programming that you've already validated yourself. And as you say, that if somebody then revalidates and you think to your mind, okay, girl, yes, I did well.
I like that.
Listen,
Not familiar.
And like there was a beautiful graphic picture that I saw, a poster, and it said that there was a cup, you know, and you're trying to pour from the cup into another cup. But if your cup is empty, you have nothing to pour. So take the time to fill our own cups.
yeah.
If you really want to offer something, it's not selfishness. It's really not selfishness. taking time to fill our cups so that I can show up for myself, for my family, for my friends, for my extended community. I cannot show up with an empty cup. And if I have nothing to fill, I'm not going to satisfy myself and I'm not going to satisfy anyone else. So taking time from all of this, if we can gather one thought, it's like taking time for yourself is not selfishness. And
Abs-
often as spiritual practitioners, often as women, sacrificing ourselves is, we hold that in such a high altar that, compromising on everything and sacrificing ourselves. And all of these are wonderful things. But if you don't fill your cups simultaneously, how long are you going to be able to keep up with that? You're going to at a point, and then you're not going to be able to serve either or purposes. So, what you're doing is extremely valuable. It's reminding us of grounding, reminding us of taking care of ourselves, reminding us that it's okay to have, to be, I would even call ourselves victim, but to acknowledge, that we have broken pieces, we
mm,
have hurt, we have pain. Or often, even as spiritual practitioners, we just pretend to show up perfect and fine, and the rawness is never really expressed or shown. And we think that's why we create this image of filters where
mm.
everything looks perfect. But that's not how life is. And that's not how relationships are. And that's not how our journey is going to be. We often show from you go from A to B and it's a straight line. No, there could be a
Yeah.
river, there could be mountains in between. You could probably have to walk through a jungle path or I don't know, God knows what not. So
And
eh, extremely valuable, the point that you kept reinforcing. I mean, we try to ask questions for different angles and perspective, and I found that your answer was always coming back to the self.
yeah. And the reason for
And the
that, and
re-
as you say beautifully, is that because the journey of life is such that it's not an easy path. Sometimes I look at young children and they happy just trying to crawl or walk, figure out their wobbles, and then and I just think, oh gosh, enjoy this stage of life. But with
You're wobbly.
I seriously do because and again it comes back to that time where um I remember personally as well when I had my daughter, she's 18 now, and it was difficult being a new mom. And I was shocked. My body was changed again, my hormones, I was a lack of sleep, we know what it's about, right? And then I couldn't wait for her to say, I've been missing out programs at the temple and I wanted to get back into the community. And at that time, 18 years ago, it wasn't so many online stuff that was happening. I think it just took off recently and where we could just put something on and watch what's happening at the temple or get a Bhagavatam class or something like that. So I felt really disconnected at that time and I wanted her to say, okay, when are you going to allow me grow up now? So I could get back, I could take you with me to a Sunday program or a festival. Because for me, I remember clearly, and this is exactly how memories are stored. Sometimes, you can actually remember the event. You
Uh,
can sometimes go into that detail of remember what you were wearing, who was there, because those were like life-changing moments.
That's true.
And
Uh,
I remember it was one of our Rath Yatra festivals, our festival of chariots here in Durban, and it's a big one. And I'm sitting here thinking, I've got 4-month baby. I've got to dress her up and it's outdoors and then put the sun hat. And where am I going to go change her when she needs to? The practicalities of it. So now at every festival, every year, I'm so grateful that I can be more like exactly. These are stored memories, you see? It's stored memories. So it's perspective. It's perspective of life that changes based on our journey. And one of the things that you were saying about you taking time for yourself and, as spiritual practitioners, that meditation is so powerful. And it's one of the things that I actually also share even with those who are not practicing in terms of like whether it is any devotion or whatever path that you may be on. But prayer is so powerful. Prayer is so powerful. I was at the radio station yesterday, and one of the ladies there said to me, she was going through a difficult time, and she said, on her own, and she says, "You know what, Krishanji, when I'm tired, I just go to Bhagavan. I just go to him and I say to him, I'm tired now. I leave it at your feet." And she says, "I feel so much better just by saying that." And, it's these simple practices that we take for granted because we think we always need to have it in control. We always need to know what's next, what to do, how to do it. I can say I've been one like that. I need to know exactly what's going on. And sometimes when things don't work as I want it to work, I'm then like lost for a bit. But I've really grown in a sense where I understand now that the power of prayer and just sometimes when you feel life being heavy and you are going through that jungle, as you beautifully explained, when you're walking through that jungle or climbing that mountain, that peak seems to be so steep that you leave it. And that's another thing that we talk about in our coaching, where we release the energy, we release the heavy energy. And when we release the heavy energy, we actually are able to attract goodness in our life. And what is that? It's that just God reciprocating to say, I've heard your prayer and things are going to get better. So, one of the ways that I actually, in my own life and those that I help and I serve, is I really do recommend meditation, especially when the mind is going on like a racing car. You know, it just quietens the mind. It quietens the mind. And it actually creates a new form of, if I want to use this word, initially a new form of habit. And it's a loose term, but as a starting block where you get into a space where I've got my quiet time to give myself as a form of self-care, some form of meditation to quieten my mind so that I am still, I am peaceful, and I connect inwardly with myself, with who I am, and let the world race along and give myself that space. And in that way, we are able to just navigate through our day, the challenges of life, and understand really that for me, I just find that just the power of understanding that we all children of God is so powerful.
I'm so glad you brought this point because even when I was watching your website, it says pause. And I was like, how do we pause? And explain the whole pause, like calm between chaos part so nicely that we need to take a break for ourselves. Like I was mentioning, we need to hold back the arrow before we launch it, of the specific target. So thank you so much for explaining that. I also had this question, and I think I'm trying to understand this more clearly, that as spiritual practitioners, we are all here spiritual practitioners. these are self-care, the habits, the all the self-talk that we do, they are our toolkit, right? They're auxiliary tools. But at the end, you put it so beautifully that ultimately we surrender ourselves, we surrender our good days and bad days to God, on the lotus feet of God. And so how does surrender act in? I'm just trying to understand, is emotional healing a prerequisite for devotion as spiritual practitioners, or it goes parallelly because our lives are intertwined that way?
Great question, because I think all of us are on a journey of healing. All of us. And I think if anyone in the room, who would say, is there anyone free of suffering? I don't think anybody would be able to raise their hand, maybe like, okay, but not really with conviction that, yes, I'm happy, I'm free of suffering, I'm beyond this nature of suffering. No. So definitely it's not a prerequisite, because actually the more that we practice spirituality, the more it helps us heal. It gives us that perspective of our suffering. That, and for me personally in my own life, I've seen how suffering has brought me closer to God. And I can genuinely understand and say this with deep conviction that if I didn't have certain things that I went through, I would not be who I am today in my relationship with God. So that for me really, really helped me understand why I went through that, because it brought me closer to my real purpose. And so it runs in parallel, that the more we actually, as we heal, we surrender, it actually just works in sync thereafter. And another very important point in terms of our healing and our path as practitioners or spiritual practitioners is when we surrender, even in the law of manifestation, right? Where we say we're manifesting in this world. If you've heard that, another buzz term.
Yep.
It's and the phrase is release to the universe. So whatever the universe may look like to you, well, to me it's Krishna, and I release it to him, and it's, you do, this is my desire and this is what I'd like, but you do as you would like, and give me the strength to manage what you'd like for me. And when you release that attachment to what you want, it becomes easier to deal with. And Krishna says this in the Bhagavad Gita as well, that where we should be equipoised in happiness or sadness. That's such a powerful word, because today we know that today we're happy. Can we guarantee the same state? Again, coming to an NLP phrase, can we guarantee the same state tomorrow? No, we can't, because that journey in the jungle is not telling. We have the tools to deal with it, but the path that we delve in, we have to have that faith. And when we have that faith, and when it becomes really heavy, we surrender. So we're not fighting against the tide. We then going with the tide. And that creates a very, very different outcome. So when you're fighting a high tide, you're going to lose the battle. The tide is more powerful than you. But when you surrender and you release and you allow God to work his magic, you're actually flowing with the tide.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Actually, the cardinal rule of manifestation is that the way they manifest is that you write everything in the present tense, that I have this already.
Mm.
You're taking the aspect of longing away from your practice. So if I'm to say that, okay, I want to lose weight and I weigh 120 pounds or whatever it is, So instead of saying, I want to weigh or I wish to weigh, where there's a gap between that reality and my reality today, I the act of manifestation, the cardinal rule of manifestation is that I weigh 125 pounds till it actually, this reality of mine just coincides with that reality that I'm setting for myself. And the reason why we do that is so similar and on the lines of Bhagavad Gita when Krishna says that don't be attached to the results.
Mm.
And he's explaining that, what do you have to worry about? This is your reality. Can you see that all of these people are already being killed?
Yeah.
You know, it's the
Mm.
same thing. Oh, you know what? This is you're already 120 pounds.
Yeah.
That's the play of the mind that, when you're saying, okay, I've set this as my manifestation, then don't leave that as a longing. And the only way that we stop it from being a longing is when we surrender it and we release it to the universe. And for us, it's Krishna. For someone, it's the universe or the light
Mm.
or the energy or
Yeah.
whatever. And the minute we release it, we become detached because it's already our reality.
And yeah, and that's exactly it, because you're speaking in your to your future self that I've got it already. And one of the in between blocks of that is now take action to get to that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So if you're sitting here today and you're going to say, no, I'm this X amount of weight, whatever it is, I'm never going to lose it. I'm so heavy. Exercise is too much, diet is too much. So now, if you see yourself exactly as you said, guys, we already there. I'm so grateful for this. I feel so good. I feel so energized. Let me drink a glass of water. Let me eat healthy. Let me go for a walk. Automatically, again, it's that mindset shift. It's just the play with the language, coming back to our language programming and storing it into our brain, so our hard drive, our programming is different, and then we form new habits.
Thank
Fantastic.
you. Thank you so much.
For me, it really closes the circle.
Listen,
Yeah.
thanks.
Causes little. And it's been such an honor to have you, Krishna and Radhe. We should really have you come back and maybe, maybe do a little workshop or
Yeah, that'll
let's
be
something, as a community, as a group of
Yeah.
women practicing spirituality. Let's try to do some workshop and let's try to really,
And hope,
enhance this support group system where we can help each other, iron out these little creases that we all have. And
and one
some
of
of
the
us,
things.
yeah.
No,
So,
thank you. Because one of the things I think you mentioned earlier as well, and Ananga touched on it also, is that I think often it's not often enough that we speak about these topics and we speak about the journey of healing. I think many just is under the smoke screen because you may feel you will be judged, or you may feel that somebody would scorn at you, or you may just feel that I've got no place to turn to share, in a confidential space. And that is a reality. That is a reality. And I want to also emphasize that it's okay to not be okay. It's really, really okay to not be okay. And, we need to embrace that. So when we understand that it's okay, but let us seek the support that's from a friend, from somebody out there, from a mentor, from somebody in your circle that you can trust. Let's seek that support so we could get help and not be stuck in a place. And then 1 week goes, 1 month goes, eventually we still stuck after a year. And then we look back and say, oh gosh, 12 months ago, this is what happened. And I really didn't do anything. I'm still stuck. So I'd love to have, a safe space that we can create for women to share, to talk, even if it means just, coming together to celebrate wins, to cheer each other on, you know, but just that support to say it's okay wherever you at. And from here, let's move forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think my biggest takeaways were awareness. So next time I'm going to be in any situation, happiness or distress situation, aware of my surroundings. So awareness of who I am and awareness of my surrounding is the biggest thing. And also a little bit of awareness of what's the cause of distress. Sometimes we blame our the immediate people or immediate situations as distress. But when we do a further analysis, like you were talking, then we know the root cause of our distress. Maybe something from our past, maybe something we are insecure about. So thank you so much, Krishangi Radhe. I think we learned so much from you. And as Gayatri said, we would love to have you back. I also have a 4-year-old daughter. So I was smiling when you were giving all your experiences. So I'm in that right now where I'm
Not yet. Wait till they turn teenagers. It's a whole other COVID.
well,
And then you can get back into the pram, right?
No. Right. I tell my boys, I say, can I just put you back into my belly now?
Yes.
So much easier.
so this
Thank
was
you
my
so
safe
much.
space. I love chatting, I love talking, and I'm using it in some way. And I love how you're using your experiences, your skills in the service. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's
Thank
an
you.
honor to have you. And it was a wonderful conversation.
Thank
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 you.
you.
you.